And I gotta pin her. So most of you are veterans, and I'll do this a few times just so people just make sure you find Kate's image. Oh, there is its scaffolding. Kate's image, and then you double click it on your iPhone or your iPad, or you right click in the corner to the little blue bubble and pin it to your screen. That way you get to see Kate's feed and hear me ramble on. But it is we were just talking about, luckily Kate's from England, so she's used to this weather, and where I am today, and we have the same weather. It is rainy and yucky and cold, and it's going to be like this for like a week. So we are just the same, but I only have 2 more weeks from today, and then I'll be there getting everybody in here. I'll turn my video off so that you make sure to find Kate if you get back to my face yapping away. But we are starting, wait for a minute or two, but we are starting, and I literally changed this route like 10 times because I haven't spent a ton of time at the canal, around the canal. I have, the couple of times I've been there has been each time with a different French guy. And the first time I went, I started way up at kind of like the top where the canal breaks off and comes down. And it was really neat, but it was also kind of not we'll call it the grittier side. And it's a lot of the stuff along the canal is newer. So, and that's newer in the case of French history, of course. But then I found this church, and sadly has a lot of scaffolding in it, but the spire, this is why I wanted to share it. And we can't really see the spire on the top very well, but it's like the spire of Notre Dame. So that's kind of why I wanted to share it, because we all love that church and that spire. But anyway, we'll jump in since I think most people are here. This is the Église Saint-Laurent, nothing to do with Yves Saint Laurent, but it is this really beautiful church over here on the Boulevard de Magenta. We are very close to the Gare de l'Est. It's kind of just right down the street from the Gare de l'Est train station. And the original church, originally this road in this area was on the north to south access road of the Roman road going back to the 1st century. So this church clearly is not that old, but there was a church that stood here since the 6th century. It ended up being destroyed by the Normans in 885. And then another church was built here in 1180. It was decided it was too small. And then this church was built going back to the oldest date that they know of is 1429, because that is when the choir was finished. It was dated June 14th, 1429, but they don't. So it was, definitely the early 15th century. This very front of the church, just above there, the tympan is really beautiful. It's by Paul Balzac, and it was done in 1870. So it's kind of, it's very contemporary for one of these old churches. But this church itself that we see today, and the facade is newer, but the church itself goes back to that 15th century. And then the front of the church was completely redone under our friend Baron Haussmann, because he made these streets out in front, the boulevards of Magenta and Strasbourg. They made the intersection wider because it was going to the train station, of course. So the entire front facade is newer. It was done in 1863 by Simon Claude Constant Defoe. So that's why we have a much newer looking facade up here. But look at that. The door looks rather sparkly, or a whole lot newer. But it's a really beautiful church. It's with its flamboyant Gothic. So that's when, the Gothic, like Notre Dame, it takes it even more flourishing step up and has even more, you see where all those lovely flourishes are underneath. But I do love above the church, it's just so bright and colorful. And usually a lot, like as we know in Notre Dame, that's usually all done with sculptures. So I'm excited to come check out this church a lot more. And right before we started, Kate, a lot of times we'll get to the area early. And of course, this morning, sometimes in the morning when I see that I have a message from Kate, I'm like, uh-oh, what is it? She's like, the church is locked. It's not open. And we're like, how come these churches are closed on Sundays? And so then it ended up opening up. So we're going to pop inside. So hopefully we will have there's Kate. Hopefully we'll have a good signal. Today is the last day that you have to wear a mask inside, except for on transport in Paris or in France. And as of tomorrow, you don't have to use the vaccine pass anymore. So inside this church, the stained glass in the church is really fantastic. A lot of it was done by Ernest Lamy de Nozon, and then Pierre Gaudin, who was the son of Jean Gaudin, who did a lot of the stained glass in the churches just all over France. But it's really pretty inside. And the keystone, you see at the very top where the vaults come together, the keystones are one of the only remaining ones of that sort in all of France, where is that usually you see the keystones in the center are very flat, and these ones are like sculpted, and they tell the story of the Passion of the Christ, which is really interesting. But it is a very pretty church, and it's one of those churches probably a lot of people don't wander into. I haven't even been inside this church. But I have been in another one we're going to hopefully pop into later. We'll see. We'll roll the dice on if we could get inside. But it's all very well taken care of. Oh, and we have oh no, it looks like somebody broke part of it off. That is like the ones that's in Saint-Sulpice that have those huge shells that are even bigger than that were a gift from the country of Venice to Francois Prunier. And in this church, this is at one point, this was the parish of St. Vincent de Paul. He once had this church. And another, the wedding of Jean Bacot, who was married to Guillaume du Barry here in 1768, who was, you might recognize that name, it was Madame du Barry. And Madame du Barry was, of course, the mistress of Louis XV. She was originally a prostitute, and then he saw her and wanted her because she was coming out to court to visit all of the other court members. And then Louis XV set eyes on her and wanted her, but she was not going to assimilate into court very well because she had been a prostitute. So basically the kings would buy names for their mistresses. And so her lover was actually the brother of Guillaume, who was Jean du Barry. And they decided, because he was a count, that he would marry Jean, and then she became the Madame du Barry. And then basically the kings would throw money at these guys and give them property, get rid of them, and then she could come to court and everything would be fine. But she was also enemy number one with Marie Antoinette. And when, before Marie Antoinette, because Louis XV's wife had died, she was kind of, the head chick of the court. And then Marie Antoinette comes in, and here she is the wife of the Dauphin. And now Jean du Barry is pushed down a rank, but that she didn't like that too much. So it had been a year, and Marie Antoinette would not talk to her, because when Marie first met Louis, and on the day before her wedding, she was like, who is this woman at their family table? And somebody told her who Madame du Barry and what her story is. Oh, there's Jeanne d'Arc. And so from then on, Marie Antoinette didn't like her, but it almost caused an international incident, because she would not speak to Madame du Barry, and the Austrian ambassador even got involved and told Marie Antoinette's mother. And basically, because Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI famously did not consummate their marriage for quite some years, it was almost they were almost going to just completely oust Marie Antoinette. And her mother said, you have to talk to her. And so at a big party, after a few years, she finally walked up to her, Madame du Barry, and said, there's rather a lot of people here today. Oh, there's Saint Denis without his head, holding his head there. That's a very cool. Oh, I love these. And so international incident, everything was fine because she finally spoke to Madame du Barry, but those were the last words she ever said. And then Madame du Barry, after the revolution, she, of course, the problem with being a mistress or the chief mistress to the king is there's not a lot of protection for you. You're basically back out onto the street. So after the revolution, her servant actually turned her in, and then she was tried and hid her jewelry all over. She sent some of it to England, and she thought she could barter with them. Oh, St. Peter. She thought she could barter with them and say, hey, if I told you where my jewelry is, will you save my life and save me from the guillotine? And they said, oh, tell us where it is. So she told them where all of her jewels were hidden. And then guess what? She still went to the guillotine, and she was literally kicking and screaming, yelling, and till the last second, her head was chopped off. So Madame du Barry, but we did a whole podcast episode about her on Paris history of Hemingway. And so the Saint-Pierre again. I will link to that on my website where I put all the notes from today. So you could go back and find these great things. Look at that lovely ironwork. And we have such a good signal in here, Kate, too. And nobody's told us to leave. Look at that beautiful woodwork.
No, we have
a rare opportunity.
Successful church trip.
Yeah. But the other, there used to be a tomb here, and it was to the Sanson family. And the Sanson, Saint Geneviève, always my favorite, and Jeanne d'Arc and Saint Denis. This was also on the pilgrimage road that people would go before the church was here. They would walk this road out front to go to Saint Denis for pilgrimage of, look at that beautiful S and G up there. This is a beautiful church. Oh, and it has lots of great signs. They don't always have that. But the Sanson family, interesting enough, the fact that Madame du Barry got married here, the Sanson family is known because their family business was being executioners. And Charles Henry Sanson, third generation executioner, was the one that basically dropped the blade on more than 2,500 victims at what we know as the Place de la Concorde, and including Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, and most likely Madame du Barry. And it was Charles Henry, that Marie Antoinette said her very last words when she said, "Excusez-moi, monsieur, je ne voulais pas," which I did not. She stepped on his foot, and then she laid down and off with her head. But the family used to be here. They've since moved them up to Montparnasse. But I was reading about Charles Henry, and I'm going to do a couple episodes on the podcast kind of about true French crime that I'm kind of excited about. But that he said he really didn't love his job, which is good to hear. But his son also worked with him, and his son, they had that very gruesome what they would do after somebody's head was chopped off, especially if it was a royal, and they did this to Marie and to Louis. They'd stick their head on a pike and basically pass it around, and people would pass it around the crowd, which is just disgusting. I would not want to see that or be underneath it. And his son was doing that. It didn't say for who, it's just some other person, not one of the big guys, but he fell off the scaffolding and died while he was trying to parade somebody's head around. Look at that. Oh, his poor face. He probably lost his face in the revolution. This was during the Revolution. It was just like Notre Dame turned into the Temple of Reason. And we're walking around the back side of the church. On this is a Rue Saubert, and it is named after one of the cardinals of the family of Notre Dame. So you could see on this side, the church is much older than the front facade. And you could kind of see we don't want you to get too wet of your camera, Kate. So if we need to duck in someplace, let us know.
It's not actually raining very heavily. For some reason, every drop is going on the land. You know, it's not true.
But has anybody spent, I know I had some clients back in January that actually stayed out at the Canal Saint-Martin. I have not spent a lot of time there, but other people do love it. Moustache. And there's the Gare de l'Est in the back of the church. So the other spire, sadly, is all covered up. And the Gare de l'Est is not too far from. Oh, a CBD clinic there, or a restaurant.
Really, really good food.
Oh, there is a lot of, because this is very up and coming kind of hipster trendy area, which is probably why I haven't spent a lot of time there. I come from when in Portland, Oregon, it's kind of like everybody here is kind of a hipster. I don't need to see that when I'm in Paris. But I do want to come out here and check out that church. Another church that we're going to hopefully end up at is beautiful, and this is really close. Where we're going to end up is really close to the Atelier de Lumière, which is many of you have probably been out to in the past when you've seen the Van Gogh. Right now, this year they're doing the show is about Cézanne. Oh, we always love a bookstore. But this so this area right here was the convent of the Récollets, and it was back to, it was originally a Franciscan order. And so this was also a church, ended up becoming a hospital as well. That building there goes back to the 18th century. Over time, the convent and the monastery was enlarged. In 1614 and 1790, it closed as a monastery and became a hospice, and then eventually a military hospital. Shay, the power wash the churches. I know, but sometimes I get worried that would just ruin maybe pry something off. But we do still see this fantastic grand entrance. It used to be for the military hospital, and it says it over the door too. We always love these beautiful little entrances. But right in this area, quite a few times during World War I, Big Bertha dropped a few bombs down here. Can we go? Oh, good, we go in. Dropped a few bombs in this area, and a huge shell hit between the convent and the church. And the hospital was used a lot during the Prussian siege and also World War I, because a lot of the people were coming back from the front through here. Oh my God, that scared me for a second. Oh, it's a big kitty cat. That's kind of a random placement. But look at that great entrance. Oh, thank you, Angela. There is some really good, this is the Batard are out here too. There's always, especially a lot you'll see in the Marais and over here in this area. And there's some of them like the park right next to Saint-Germain-des-Prés, the steels that are dedicated to the many children lost in World War II, which are always just heartbreaking to see. And that's glad to see the flowers. So next weekend, hopefully our rain will stop. But next Sunday, we are going to go to the Jardin des Plantes, which will be fantastic to see everything in bloom. So we're excited to go see that. This area, this park itself, the Jardin Villemain, it was, it used to be the hospital that we see here, at one point was even larger. But this, and it also has a few markings from both World War I and World War II on it. But it was used to be much larger. The park used to be much smaller. And over time, it's gotten to be about 4 times the size of what it used to be when the convent and everything was here. The garden itself was created in 1977. So it's brand new practically. And it is on a lovely little day. It is filled with quite a few people. There's a kind of a very cool statue in here that I think is kind of in the middle. It's a green statue. I have walked through this park a couple times. Look at the trees. I'm really hoping that the big pink cherry blossoms at the end, at below my favorite Institut de France, hold out. 2 weeks. It just needs to hold out for 2 weeks. But there's a really cool fountain. It's kind of a life-size fountain, and it is one of the very first lead fountains, cast iron fountains in Paris. And it precedes I think I see it. It precedes the Wallace fountains. And it is a child with a dolphin and 2 newts. I think it's right there to your right. Is it all cornered off? Oh, no. But it is a really cool, it's painted green, just like the Wallace fountains. And it was done in 1846. And it was to bring water to the area. It actually used to sit over on the Rue de Faubourg Saint-Martin, but it has those 2 newts on the side. And then you can see like the cute little turtle there. And above the turtle, it has the name of the artist, Marie Auguste Martin. It's very cute, cute little turtle. But it's older than the Wallace fountain. So the Wallace fountains weren't the only ones here, but it's a really gorgeous fountain and huge. But they moved it here when they created the park. They moved it here in 1977. There is a copy of this in Rio de Janeiro. If anybody is here from Rio, you've got the seal of the crest of Paris on there. Look at that cute little guy. The water, the fountain, I don't know, because there's no basin underneath it. They might not use it for water anymore. And there's also one in Porto, in Portugal. And we'll head out here. We are kind of on the lower side of the canal. Now we're heading out to the canal. We're kind of on the lower side. And we're going to head to a place that I don't know if many people have seen the movie. And I'm not talking about Amélie. But we're going to go to a spot made famous because of a different movie, a very old French movie. But the canal itself was first ordered under Napoleon, the first Napoleon, and it was to bring more water to the city, and it connected from the Ville to the Arsenal, and which is just right down at the base of, goes down to the Seine. So it is 3 miles long, 4.5 kilometers, and there's 9 locks on it. So the locks, it's really cool to watch the boats and how they bring them in and close it, and they lower the lock, and then so the boat could go down. And part of it goes underground. A couple years ago, when they redid the area around the Bastille column, they uncovered some more of the canal, so you could see that. And I was thinking we'd walk that direction, but it's a little bit farther to go in our short hour. Look at all those blossoms. And
you see the parakeets?
Oh,
Quite green.
Oh, you can hear them.
It's like, I don't know if you can see them on the camera.
We could hear, oh, that's better. Oh, there's a tree in the Jardin de Luxembourg that's like every time, like in December, I was there and it was like, there must have been 50 parakeets in it. It was the craziest thing. And then they'd fly off and they'd all come right back like 2 minutes later to the same tree. But they were so cute. It's always nice at this time of the year when you wake up in the morning and you can start to hear the birds, because then that's always like the sign that spring really is coming back. And in the US, Kate, we changed our clocks today. So most people,
you guys are ahead of us.
I know, we're closer to you now. I'm closer to Paris now.
I'm not sure our clocks change in 2 weeks.
2 weeks the day I fly over. So it's kind of good timing for me. Even though my watch is always on French time, I'm just leaving it right now until I get there. And so we are now going to head down. You've got all these really beautiful, cute little colored, painted stores. It's really quite, it's really changed a lot. This used to be, when it was first built, it was finished in 1825, first ordered in 1802. And it was all very industrial, which you really kind of get that feeling still. So it was a lot of factories, because obviously they used the water to move things down, including moving things into Paris, like, cheese and wine. And funny enough, the canal was actually paid for with wine, because they put a tax on wine to pay for it. So it's just, wine, it just is the gift that really keeps on giving. But we're going to pass over here. This is the Passerelle Bichat, and it goes over, it is one of the 9 bridges that goes over. Most of them are just for traffic, or most of them are just for foot traffic. So that's the Passerelle, which technically is also what the Pont des Arts is, but it's for some reason still called the Pont des Arts instead of the Passerelle. But on a beautiful sunny day or a fall day, every side of the canal is filled with people sitting and drinking wine and enjoying the sunshine. So soon. Or along the Seine. But it is a very kind of hip area. It used to be, of course, less expensive to live here than it would be to stay, say, in the 6th or the 2nd or in the center. But I think all the prices, like everything else, just went up, especially as they keep redoing everything here. But we're on the other side now, and because I wanted to go to show you this building that's coming up. And we are going to come up here on the left-hand side, kind of after that little break, is a building called and it says the Hotel de Nord on it. It was built in about 1912. In 1923, husband and wife, Emile and Louise Dabou, bought the Hotel de Nord. It's here on the Quai de Gemay. And it has a little restaurant in there, but it was a hotel. And their son, Eugene, would live here some of the time, and he'd work at night, kind of as a night watchman and working at the desk. And so he kept track of all the little things that were going on. And he was actually an artist. He started as an artist. He was a big fan of Van Gogh and Matisse. He actually also showed some of his paintings at the Salon des Indépendants in 1927 and 1928. But in 1929, he wrote a book called The Hotel de Nord. It was the very first book he ever wrote, the first of quite a few, and it won the Populus Prize, and everybody loved this book. And in the book, he basically tells the story of a few of the guests that would stay there. He had a young couple that came here to rent a room, Pierre and Renee, and they had a pact that they were going to basically do a double suicide, kill themselves in this, very Romeo and Juliet, and ended up that there was also a prostitute staying there and her pimp. And one night the sound of a gun goes off, and nobody is sure what this is. Did Pierre, supposedly Pierre shot Rene, but he couldn't end up killing himself. But Rene did not die, but it turns into this whole thing. And basically all of this kind of takes place here at the Hotel du Nord and on the bridge that we just passed. But the thing it's an old French movie. It was done in 1938 by Marcel Carme. But the thing about this movie, I'll actually put a link on my website because I actually found a place and it's all in French. It's black and white, it's old, but you could watch it. It's about a little over an hour long. You could actually watch it just for free, and I'll put the link on my website. But the reason why this thing is kind of very well known, on top of it, the director of the movie was very famous at the time, was because none of it was filmed here. The Marcel Carme ended up having an exact life-size replica of this area created out at Billancourt, not very far from here, including the bridge that they walk over, the facade, everything. So it ended up becoming quite beloved to the people, to Parisians and to the French people. And the building kind of started falling apart. And it was in the 1970s, it was going to be deemed that it needed to be condemned. And the French people kind of completely, were up in arms about this, and it was saved. Ended up that it was actually had to be mostly rebuilt, but the facade was considered a historical monument. And so it was recreated to be just like the original facade that was also kind of created for the movie. So it's pretty interesting that the story of it was, it was saved because of a fake version of it was created and people fell in love with it. And so now it is now it is saved. It is now a cafe. So it actually has pretty fantastic food, kind of Mediterranean food. And you could go there, make a reservation. And I'll put a link to that on my website as well. But it had two very famous French actors at the time, Annabella and Jean-Pierre Aumont. And so it was actually, it's really interesting. And I actually was told that by the Frenchman that I first came out here for. And I was fascinated about the story, and I then had to watch the movie. So it was quite interesting. You have some older buildings, of course. You can see that great door on the side. There's a lot of families that live out here. There's a lot of bars and nightlife in this area as well. There's a bar not far from here that kind of from the outside of the street, I think it's actually maybe right down here. It kind of just looks like you're going into kind of a crazy, you don't know where you're going. I think it might be this one right here. And you go back and it's this big area, big bar, garden, everything. I think it's this one. Super fun. There's also one of the firehouses. The firehouse that's out here has one of the biggest parties the night before 14 Juillet look at that fantastic entrance. It looks empty. But the canal itself, Ryan, it's more affordable to live here than it would be in the center of the city, but it definitely has gone up probably in the last, 10 or 15 years than it used to be, because a lot of it has been really cleaned up. This lower part of it is a lot, the upper part, there's a part where the canal is down below and you're walking up higher on the sides of it. And it has been, sadly, it had to be used for a lot of the refugees coming into France. And so it was, I've walked through there and they're always just the nicest people, but it completely, like the sides of the street and everything. So, and then they've kind of tried to clean that up and find places for those people over time. That looks like a happening little spot. Uh-oh, froze up a little. And with those more newer looking buildings compared to our old streets. But in 2016, I don't know, you guys might remember seeing this, but they decided to every 15 years or so, they clean the canal. And so in 2016, they had to, at the very top of it, they put in a huge, heavy cement wall, dropped it down in there to create a dam. And then took all the water out. They ended up going in and having to scoop out all the fish and save the fish. And then they got rid of all of the water. And what was, I'll put some photos of it on my website. What was released from when the water was gone was pretty horrible. Oh, is the lock moving below?
Yeah, there's a boat about to come through.
Oh, we could see it maybe lift up. And then somebody carrying a mattress. So it's a lot of activities. Yeah. Or that's a really fancy umbrella. It is really cool to watch the locks. Has anybody ever done the canals? Like even my grandparents did the Canal du Midi. And I've got these, I think in like early 80s, that goes down to Carcassonne. And so I have these really cool photos of my grandparents on this little boat that they just went through, and they'd stop in all these little small villages and get out and get their cheese and their fromage and everything. And oh, look, it goes sideways. Here, in Portland, we're like Bridge City, I think they call it. So we're used to the bridges, but they lift up and down. And when you see them, you're like, oh, great. You're going to be there for like a half an hour.
I've never seen a sideways one ever.
I haven't seen a sideways one either. And then sometimes you do all that and it's like a tiny sailboat that just has a tall mast. And you're like, really? Where's the boat?
He's down there. It's quite a wide tree.
Ah.
The previous one.
They'll kind of, especially in the summer months, they kind of close it to most boats except for tourist boats. And you could take a boat and and some of the locks actually are underground. And you could take boats that would take you all the way down. It's like a little 2-hour cruise. It's not very long. Like we said, it's only about 3 miles, but it'll take you down to Arsenal. Well, that's pretty cool. But when they cleaned it, I remember seeing the stories of it at the time in 2016, and the amount of bikes that they found that people, especially when, I don't think it's not as bad the last, few years. They put a clamp on it because there was so many different companies doing those rideshare bikes and the trottets, the little, little scooter things and all of that. I mean, they were literally everywhere. You could barely walk down the street without, having to walk around them, and you can't move them because if you move them without paying for it, they set off a screaming alarm. Oh, there's our boat. Is there better be people on it? Okay, good.
There's a few.
There's a few, but that's a fun thing you could do when you're in Paris, a shorter one. But they found so many bikes in there. They found furniture, they found chairs, office chairs, thousands and thousands of wine bottles, just everything you could ever imagine down there. But the amount of bikes they found was, it's really actually pretty horrible. People think that that's a good place to toss those things in. And you see them on the Seine. Sometimes if the Seine on the sides is, I've recently seen, sometimes you see a handlebar sticking out. But your mom's worried you're getting wet, Kate. But this is also, I mentioned the movie earlier, but Amélie, in the beginning of the movie, you see her skipping stones from up on one of the bridges. And I was reading recently that that Audrey Tautou did not know how to do that. So it's all cinematic magic she didn't know how to skip the stones because she tosses them in there. And I could not find, I found every time I was trying to find out which exact bridge it was, every single thing mentioned a different bridge. And I even like paused it and tried to figure it out. But since a lot of the shot where she was looks like many of them, it was rather difficult to figure out. But they do say a couple places did say one that we're going to come up to down here was the bridge that and it was just that short little moment that she did, that she was skipping those stones. Has anybody been around the canal before? Even Kate's little wipey is cute, is pretty. Or is that an old mask?
It's exactly an old pink mask.
I know now that we have all these masks, but I'm still bringing some with me. I still want to be somewhat careful. Yeah. Yes. Don't throw them in the canal.
No.
So here at the end we have there is a bust in one of these little parks right here. This is of Frederic Lemaitre. He was a French actor in the 19th century. So he has this fancy little bust that the bird is sitting on. He was a big actor in the theaters that was on the Boulevard de Crime, which was over near here. And it was called the Boulevard de Crime because of the theaters, not because there was all the crime happening there, but it was because of the theater, the plays that they put on. And I am currently, I wanted to do a podcast. We have a podcast coming out. We did one a few weeks ago about the Romantic era with the artist, because of course, Delacroix. And then we did another one that comes out in a couple of weeks that is about the authors. And I ended up seeing a woman's name pop up a lot. She was an actress named Rachel. She was won by Rachel way before there was, Madonna and all those people. And I started reading about her and I was like, she needs her own podcast. And then I found there was a book about her and it's really fascinating. And a lot of these people, like his name comes up in the book. And I'm excited to finish that book and share that podcast. But across the way, there is another statue. And I do recall the moment I first saw this and wondered what she was about. And thus began my search of the different levels of prostitution in French history and my love of the courtesans, the stories. And if you've listened to the podcast, we talk about the courtesans a lot because some of them they had these amazing, fascinating stories. But this statue here is La Grisette by Jean-Bernard Descamps. It was inaugurated in 1911 here in the park. And there was different levels. In the podcast we've done before, we talk about the different levels. There's the courtesan is basically, we call it like a fancy prostitute. And La Grisette, they had that name because grise is gray. They were they were just kind of seamstresses that worked in these little shops around there. And because obviously they weren't making very much money, they were, building up their savings a little by performing sexual acts and, prostitute. They were the lowest level. So there was the grisette, then there was the lorette, like near the Notre Dame de Lorette. So the grisette was kind of the lowest level over being just working on the street. But this is she has just, I love the look on her face. She just looks like, her life is not fantastic and kind of longingly and sad. And this is depicting one of them that probably just goes around and delivers orders to people and then definitely delivers other things. But it's interesting because the fabric, and here that plaque right there, Kate, I'll come back to the grisette. But this plaque, because we are close to where some of the cafes were, that on that horrible day in November of 2015, this is a plaque that has been added to some of those victims, which that was just a horrific moment in Paris. Very sad. And you get some sweet pansies. But the grisette, because of the fabric that they wore, the fabric of the dresses that they wore were gray. So that was why they were given La Grisette. But I do remember walking by there, and I was not given a moment to stop and really take her in. And I remember taking a photo of her and going, I wonder who that is. And then I started down that rabbit hole many, many years ago. But this is also the square Jules Ferry, who was the very short time he was the mayor of Paris after Napoleon III was ousted. He was not a fan of Napoleon III, and he was very vocal about that. He was very much against it. He ended up having 2 or 3, depending, attempts on his life. One of them was actually in one of the government offices. He was almost killed. And there's a huge, at the very end of the Tuileries, right before it goes, if you're on the Rue de Rivoli side and you're looking at the end, the Pavillon Marsan of the Louvre, there at the end of the Tuileries, kind of to the left is Jeanne d'Arc. There is a very, very large marble statue monument, and it is to Jules Ferry. That's really actually very cool. A lot of times it gets, when they do the Fun Village and all of that good stuff, it gets covered up. But it is a really cool, but he was for a very short period of time, he was the mayor of Paris, and he also served in the parliament for a while as well. He had that very interesting, like very, very long beard, but then there was no hair underneath his mouth. So it was just those big 2 sides that were very long, and it's his nothing below his mouth. There was no hair there, just on the sides, which I'm not really sure why that was a look for a while. But I'm sure some hipsters will bring it back at some point. If they haven't already, they could be running around the street amok with their strange beard with nothing in the middle and their beanie hats. But there's all these lovely little parks. So you can see why this would be a great place to be on a springy day or a summery day. It's still not that bad today. Kate might beg to differ. But look, we already have flowers. I do see out my window, I see one of my daffodils. So I hope you guys all, and I know that on the East Coast, people were getting snow yesterday. So I hope you guys didn't get snow and we could just move past this. I mean, it's almost the middle of March, for Pete's sake. At the very end here, there's another little square. It is the Square Marie Picaret, and it was dedicated in 1920. It was named for Marie-Jean Picaret, who was a very outspoken, and she wrote the anarchist trade union newspaper called Le Réfractaire newspaper, and it was published from 1974 until she died in 1983. And so this little garden down here was dedicated to her. And when we get down here, we're going to go off to the side. I can't remember which. Look at that. There's another old little theater. You walk the periphery, Angela, all the way around. Oh my goodness. There was a story, I think, during the last 2 years in the New York Times about a guy that did that and took photographs of all of the neighborhoods in the, that would be quite the walk. It's not, the walking around it would be a lot, but walking across it or up and north to south or east to west, it can be done, and it doesn't take that long because Paris is actually kind of small in consideration of the city, but we are also we're actually very close to the Bataclan. I don't think we'll be able to see it, but we are very close to the Bataclan that's around here. And recently in the last few years, it was saying it was for sale, but that the trial is still going on. It started back in September of one of the terrorists, and it is still going on. It's been put on hold for a while because it was, I think one of the terrorists had COVID or some things, but it keeps getting put on hold. But it's supposed to be going until May. So I'll let you know. But when it started in September, you couldn't get anywhere near that whole entire end of the Ile de la Cité. But then as the weeks went on, it's still difficult to walk near the courthouse during the week. It is just a lovely day today. Sorry, Kate. But we are going to head over. We'll end up at the Église Saint-Ambroise, which is a really beautiful church, which I found when I went to the first time that I went to the Atelier. It's really, really pretty. And it's another one of those, the churches around here, and also as we know, the ones that are here that not a lot of people go to or also have very strange hours. Most of the church, Saint-Sulpice, you can walk in there pretty much any time of the day up until the early evening. But some of the churches here on the outskirts. But this is the canal. We can't, I think where the water is underneath us is underneath that side over there now. Oh, La Villette to the periphery. La Villette's in the news a lot these days because there's part of it that's not so great. And in the French papers, they did a big thing back in the fall because there was a lot of drug dealers out there. And so they were trying to obviously get rid of them. They've even closed some of the metro stops so people aren't getting out there. But there is at La Villette, that is where there's oh my gosh, what's the word for it? Oh my gosh, I can't even think of what the word is for it. The Philharmonic. It is out there, and it also has a museum that's dedicated to music, and they do change. And I have seen some really cool exhibits out there, small, but very, very interesting. It's also where the large kind of convention space is, and that's where they did the Tutankhamun exhibition a few years ago. Just this last year, they also had the one dedicated to Napoleon. That was actually also very, very interesting. So there's some great stuff. And I've gone out there multiple times and I felt completely fine. As is with most places, just, you just be careful.
They also have the amazing free open air cinema all summer.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And
great.
There was even the one during COVID, and I think they still do this, that is at the top on above the canal. So where the canal where it breaks off, the Canal Saint-Martin, there's that area up there that also has the big swimming. So you swim off of it and they have it all, you look like you're swimming there, but they were doing this during COVID. And I think they do it during the summer where you could go out there and you float on like inner tubes, and they have a huge movie screen out there.
Oh, amazing.
I know, so cool. Especially if it was like a super, super hot day, that would be a great place to go. And they have had some very hot days in France in the last few years. Very hot. But there are some amazing, this is the canal goes through the 10th and the 11th. Is the area that we're in, and we're actually not very far from where we ended up last week. There's the Bataclan over there, which I don't know if you guys saw there's a documentary on Netflix that's about it. It's in French. You could get it with English subtitles, but it is very, very difficult to watch. I had to stop it, and it took me a few months to finally get through all of it, because it is people that were in the Bataclan, people that were in those cafes, people, I mean, it has footage from like camera, security cameras. It is incredibly hard and difficult to watch, but it is the people, but telling the stories of the people that were helping save their, complete strangers and things like that. It would be hard not to be in tears many times when you watch it, but it is really, really amazing and really, really well done. You should definitely watch it. Just know it's going to be hard. But so one of the doctors that had treated somebody that was, I think, injured in the background, he was trying to go online on something, eBay or something like that, and sell x-rays of one of the victims, broken arm or something like that. And it went up, and it was quickly taken down. And I think he was quickly charged with something, because that's just disgusting, just absolutely horrific. Yeah, Jean, it really is amazing. It just, I almost want to start crying just thinking about it, because it was just, but it's really, really well done. We're gonna hang here. We're almost to the little church. And is that guy wearing a tote bag on his head? Hey, whatever works, right? It looks kind of like a tote bag. But we are heading over here to the church, St. Ambrose. I think she's thinking, is that guy wearing a tote on his head? Did you guys see that? I love that he is just rocking that tote bag. He is like, I am just on a Sunday stroll. I am off to the market, and I don't want my head to get wet. And he is just owning it. But it is quite wet today. And Kate is our trooper. But we're not done yet, of course, but I also just want to thank everybody for being here and joining us today. And on a personal note, it is also, I'll have something in my my newsletter. I'm going to have it come out on Friday this week instead of Wednesday like it usually does, because it's kind of marking a 1-year anniversary of something I had to go through very horribly at this time last year. And I wasn't able to do videos because I was getting very, very sick. And I kind of can't believe that was a year ago. And I just want to thank everybody for all of your support and everything this last year. And even before that, I just appreciate it very much. And I have to say, I'm very, very happy it is a year since that very horrible 20 some odd days that I had to get through. But thank you guys all so much for your support and wonderful messages and everything else. I appreciate it more than you could ever know. Oh, thank you, Angela. Yeah, much healthier now. Much healthier. And if people don't know what I'm talking about, I will have something about my newsletter, but it was a year ago, specifically on March 18th, that I was told I had cancer, and it is a form of leukemia. And I am incredibly lucky because it is, as the doctor said, if there was a cancer that they would choose to have, this is the one, because it is treatable with a medication that was created by a doctor that was just about 2.5 miles from where I am right now. And he created it 20 years ago. 20 years before that, I would probably be very close, if not dead at the moment. So I am very, very thankful. And every time I go to the airport and I drive through that airport, I always thank Dr. Drucker for the medication he created. Oh, thank you, Terry. So this church right here, this is the beautiful Église Saint Ambrose, and we are just right around the corner. If you took a right at the church, walked around that right side, you'd go to the Atelier des Lumières. This church goes back to 1863. The first church was here in 1659. It's on Boulevard Voltaire is where we are. The architect was Théodore Ballou, who's done quite a few other churches here. And it's one of those few churches that actually has a porch. So the Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois has a porch that you have this entryway. Not many of them have this specific kind of porch that you go underneath. Most of them just have, you know, kind of the big columns like you have at Saint-Sulpice. But it is a really, really beautiful church inside. It has some amazing stained glass windows. It is neo-Gothic, Romanesque, and Byzantine, which was kind of big for that Second Empire style. The Second Empire was a whole mix of stuff. You had the Romanticism in there. You had Napoleon III trying to recreate the glory that was his uncle, Napoleon Bonaparte, who was also then in love with everything of, you know, the gold and over the top of Louis XIV. So Second Empire is kind of a mishmash of quite a few things, but it's pretty gorgeous at the same time. But there are two bell towers on here. They're 68 meters high, which is about the same size as Notre Dame. So it's one of the taller ones, along with Sainte Clotilde that we saw a few, I think a few months ago. But underneath here above the door, the center door has Saint Ambrose over the door. That beautiful up above here. And then on either side of him are the allegories of elegance and theology. But it's a really, the stained glass in this church is just absolutely gorgeous. And it has murals of Saint Augustin in here as well. But make sure if you come check out this church, if you go out to the Atelier, do come out here and make sure to check out this church because it is really cool. There's a park in between this near here that's really pretty that you could walk into. Does it look like they're having mass? We'll pop in for a second and see how we do. Oh, and here we have another shell. Where exactly were they getting all of these ginormous clams? Where were these clams? But it's a bright, really, really pretty church. And lots of light. And then now it's Lent, so it's on the way to Easter. And so I will be there, and I'm hoping if the 2019, right after the fire of Notre Dame, because I got there just a few days before that, I went to Easter at Saint Eustache, which is really cool. Like the mayor was there and some of the firemen were there. And I'm not Catholic, but I went and then I just follow when people sit down or stand up. But then I was just completely moved by the whole thing and was in tears. So, but I'm hoping, I'm sure it'll be either Saint Eustache or Sulpice or Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois. So I will go. It will be too early in the morning for everywhere else, but I'll take lots of videos and share it. And also I will be there. So it'll be kind of exciting to see. August 24th is going to be the second election. So that's the night that they choose. The first is August 10th is when they do the election for the president of France. And that's when they do, the 12 different candidates. Then they whittle it down to 2. And that is what is on August 24th. 5 years ago when Macron won, he did his little victory speech at the Louvre in front of the pyramid. So we'll see where they're going to do that, but I'll be there bringing you live reporting from Paris. Look at that great mosaics. So pretty. Oh, you're so sweet, Shay. Thank you. But we will have lots of it. So we will bring next week, we'll share the Jardin des Plantes. So hopefully it will be sunny and beautiful. This is very quiet church. A very much newer altar. But see, there are other great churches in Paris, even though we can't go into Notre Dame right now. There are all of these other great churches. So even Jean de France, even if you're not Catholic or religious, but if you do love architecture and art, never miss a chance if you walk by a church to poke your head in. When I was staying just this last January, there was a church right outside the window that I'd looked down on Rue Saint-Père. And I poked my head in there, and I wish it was very tiny, but I wish I'd taken more pictures because it actually is a Ukrainian church. So I wish I had, I poked my head in there and there wasn't kind of a lot to it. It was very small. It was, like a 50th of this size. But it was right there next to the medical school. Very pretty. But we love to bring you guys with us every Sunday. And if you want, you could leave us a tip. You could do it via PayPal or Venmo at ClaudineHemingway.com, or better yet, join me on Patreon. And I'm going to have I'll be back in 2 weeks and to Paris 2 weeks from today. And I will bring you lots and lots of videos and content when I am there. And I will try to figure out, I might have a few Sundays, and it might be difficult because I'm giving, I have a couple periods where I'm doing multi-day tours with groups of people. And I'm doing quite a few tours. So if you are going to Paris in April and May and want to do a tour with me, get in touch with me right away, because it is really filling up, especially between the mid-April and most of May. But let me know. And then if I'm not able to do it on Sundays, I will give you fair warning and we'll pick a different day. Oh, did I say August? I meant April. Sorry, Terry. How could I forget April? It's my birthday. But yes, the elections are in April. Sorry about that. And Easter. So the 10th is the election, 17th is Easter, and then the 24th is the final election. And the 26th is my birthday. It's big month. It's big month. But look at that, beautiful. And we'll say goodbye to Kate on the outside. So underneath the church, so that she could have a break. Hopefully, we should have kept on. We should have followed the guy with the tote on his head. But yeah, I think you were right, Karen. I think that the wife was not, I did not get a feeling of that she seemed very happy. They've been married a long time. But there's this great little park out here, and another park that's really close to here has a lot of beds and areas that, it's kind of like a community garden that people can, rent space from and grow vegetables. So there's a very large one of those really close to here. And that is the Boulevard Voltaire. But we're going to get some blossoms soon. But thank you guys all so much for joining us today. And we can't wait to see you next weekend from the Jardin des Plantes. And it might be too early, but there is a whole garden in the Jardin that is dedicated to peonies. And if we don't get to see them, probably not yet. It's probably still early, but I know I saw them in April a few years ago. So I will go in April, not August, Terry, April, to go and because some of the peonies are like as big as your head. They're just the most stunning things peonies are just the best. But thank you guys all so much. And if you want to leave us a tip, you could do it at PayPal or Venmo at ClaudineHemingway.com. And thank you guys all so much. for joining us and supporting me this last year. And I'm happy that I could be here today and see all of you. I'm very, very happy. So thank you guys so much. And we'll see if Kate wants to pop on, if she's not, the poor thing. Oh, she still looks beautiful. She doesn't look like she's drowning yet, but she'll probably be happy to get rid of that mask.
I know. Yeah, it's quite exciting, especially if I've been locked out of the vaccine pass.
It will
dad
be.
Get COVID in the States.
I know. The poor thing got COVID in the States. And so she, and then because of the health pass, they wouldn't recognize that she had COVID and recovered from it outside. So she's been like locked out of everything till tomorrow. She couldn't go anywhere because she couldn't get that put on her health pass.
Very excited to go to museums.
Yes. Yeah. Are you going to go to the hunting museum?
I am. Yeah.
Good.
I'm trying to do that like this week on it.
Yeah. And there's the new Dior Museum that I already have a ticket for that. I cannot wait to go and see that. That's going to be, if everybody hasn't seen that, it's on, they redid the offices and this other one, and the stairwell in this, have you seen pictures of this, Kate? The stairwell in the center, it has like all the way around it. It's 1800 3D images created of little dresses and purses and shoes. And it's all done in like rainbow colors. So it's like a lot like the exhibit that they had at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, but you walk around it and it's like an ombre rainbow. And it's, as soon as I saw the pictures, I literally gasped and was like, what is this? I'm going.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's going to be really cool. So we'll happy to come see that. But thank you guys all so much. And thank you, Kate. And we'll see you guys next Sunday. And have a great day. And I hope you get some more sleep today. Thank you, Kate. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Jean.